You won't have to give up in order to go up. I remember back in my life, back around about the 8th grade, when I was a kid, which I'm not a kid anymore. But back during that time, I found myself hanging with some of the wrong crowd. I was hanging with some guys, was good, cool guys to me, but we found ourselves always in trouble. Found myself in the office sometimes 2 to 3 times a day. Not only that, I ended up hooking up with a young lady. We were like Bonnie and Clyde. We got in more trouble. And even so, I ended up getting a young lady pregnant at 15. Wow, that was a scary time in my life. I thought my life was over. But guess what? It wasn't the end. Through that time, I realized I needed to make some changes. So going into my 9th grade year, I disassociated myself with hanging with some of my guys as much. But I also started connecting myself with others who were going in the right direction that I wanted to go into. And so I went from one year getting in trouble to the next year in my 9th grade year being on the honor roll, being the president of an organization called Occupational Prep. And then also that year, I got so many accolades and awards just for being a great student. And so I went from one extreme to the next. But in order to get to that next place, I had to give up in order to go up. I had to give up some of the things that I was doing that was taking me in the wrong place that I did not want to go. And circle myself with others and other things that's going to help me to move into the place that I needed to go, in which I wanted better for myself. Because I was no longer only operating for me, I had a son to think about. And so that was a time that really shook me to make it realize, hey, if I want better for my life, I have to do some things differently. So I share all that with you because even at a young age, I made the adjustments then, and I'm constantly making those adjustments now. Because that reminds me of a book that I'm currently reading called 10X is Easier Than 2X. A lot of times we get comfortable doing the things that are common to us, meaning that, hey, I can go do my job just the way it is, and I'm comfortable making whatever, maybe $20, $25, $30 an hour. We sometimes think that's as much as we can possibly be, or we can get comfortable in the routines that we've put ourselves in. But I want to stretch you to think further, because if you think to your best, there are other levels that's beyond what you currently see. And so if you want to have a great life, sometimes you got to give up good in order to have great, because good is the enemy of great. And so if you want great for your future, you have to be willing to do the sacrifices today in order to have the results tomorrow. And so that's putting the reps in. That's putting in the work. But I also want you to think about, we all have special gifts. None of us are built the same. Yes, you may like something that someone else likes, but we may be gifted different on how we go about accomplishing that thing. So for instance, give you another example. You may like a sport. In that sport, you may be a tall figure, you may be 6'8", you may be 6'9" or 7 foot. But this other person, they're shorter in stature. I think a person like Muggsy Bogues, he had to go through a lot. And I don't know if y'all know anything about Charlotte Hornets, but back in the day, Muggsy Bogues was one of the shortest, if not the shortest person who ever played the game of basketball professionally. He was like 5'2", 5'3", and I'm pretty sure all his life he always got told he would never be able to play as a professional athlete. But he kept giving his best. He kept challenging himself. Hey, let me use the gifts that I have, which he had so much ability and speed and quickness. And then he also realized I would never probably dunk. But guess what? I can pass. I can shoot. So he worked on what he could do in order to perfect it. The one day being on a professional team, the Charlotte Hornets, and he played with that team his whole career. He had a very successful career. Was one of the best players that ever played with the Charlotte Hornets. Now, a question was asked to Michael Jordan. As you see, I'm repping him right now. But he was asked the question, who was your hardest defender? Now, of course, he had so many greats that he played up against. He could have said Larry Bird. He could have said, hey, other great players. But he said Muggsy Bogues. And what made Muggsy Bogues so great on defense? Because he wasn't tall. He was right there where the ball was at. He was on wherever the ball was, that's where he was at. He was almost like a little net. It was right there. Couldn't get rid of him. But he used his gifts, the 10X. So you can't focus on what you're not good at, but focus on what you can do and do it to your best ability. So use what you have been given, your God-given abilities to become great. And so use what you have. It may not be what the next person has, but win on your level. And so you have to say no to the good in order to say yes to the great that's within you. So even on your job, if you say this is not what I plan on doing the rest of my life, you need to make some adjustments now. Don't say, well, I'm going to do it a little bit longer, try to get this house. Don't allow those things to stop you from being the best version of yourself, because you can't put off to tomorrow what you need to be doing today. So make the adjustments now. Don't hold off and don't procrastinate. Stop waiting. Make the adjustments now to start planning and start doing the activities that you need to have in order to become the great person that's within you. And so the same as you would see Muggsy, who was one of the best in the game, even though he may not got all the accolades that some may have been. He wasn't a Kobe, he wasn't Shaq, he wasn't none of those guys. But you, pound for pound, he made his presence known whenever he stepped on the court. His size didn't matter, because he had confidence that when you get the ball in my hand, oh yeah, we're gonna get the job done. And he took charge whenever he was on the court. And so the same thing with you in your lane. Take charge. Have the confidence to know I have been called for greatness. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen because I'm in the game, not on the sidelines. And so that's the first piece you have to have in order to be great. You got to know yourself that you are great. If you like what you just saw, do check out this next episode, because it's going to bless you even more. Be great.